The room went silent when Vincent Costello raised his hand. Not to speak, not to gesture, to strike. His son, Michael, 19 years old, stood in front of him, blood running from his nose where Vincent had just hit him. The second blow was coming. 40 men watched from their seats around the table. Made men, soldiers, enforcers. Every one of them loyal to Vincent Costello, acting boss of the Luciano crime family's East Harlem operations. And every one of them understood what was happening. Vincent wasn't punishing his son because Michael had done something wrong. He was punishing him because Bumpy Johnson was sitting at the head of the table, watching, waiting. And Bumpy had made it very clear, either Vincent handled this himself or Bumpy would handle it his way. Michael's crime wasn't theft, wasn't betrayal, wasn't business. 3 hours earlier, outside the Lenox Lounge on 145th Street, Michael Costello had spit on Mamie Johnson's dress, Bumpy's wife. In broad daylight, in front of witnesses. And now, Vincent Costello, one of the most powerful mobsters in New York, was about to beat his own son unconscious in front of his entire crew. Because Bumpy Johnson had given him no other choice. To understand how it got to this moment, to understand why Vincent Costello's hand was shaking as he prepared to hit his son again, you need to understand what happened at 2:47 p.m. that same day. Sunday, April 14th, 1957. Lenox Avenue, Harlem. Mamie was leaving the Lenox Lounge after meeting with the club's manager about booking arrangements for the following week. She wore a cream-colored dress, pearl earrings, white gloves. She was 52 years old, elegant, composed. She'd been married to Bumpy Johnson for 9 years, and in those 9 years, she'd learned 3 rules about being Bumpy's wife. Rule 1, never show fear. Rule 2, never apologize for who you are. Rule 3, trust that Bumpy will handle whatever needs handling. Mamie walked down the steps of the Lenox Lounge toward the street where her car was parked. The afternoon sun was bright. The sidewalk was crowded with Sunday shoppers, families, musicians heading to rehearsals. Across the street, leaning against a black Cadillac with 3 young white men. Mamie noticed them immediately. White men didn't hang out on Lenox Avenue unless they were police, mobsters, or looking for trouble. These weren't police. The one in the middle was Michael Costello. Mamie didn't know his name yet, but she recognized the type. Early 20s, expensive clothes, cocky smile. The kind of young man who'd never been told no in his life. Michael was talking loud enough for people across the street to hear. "You see this neighborhood?" he said to his friends. "My father runs half of the policy banks here. These people work for us. They just don't know it yet." One of his friends laughed nervously. Mamie kept walking toward her car. She had no interest in whatever display of arrogance was happening across the street. But Michael Costello saw her, saw the way she carried herself, saw the expensive dress, saw a well-dressed black woman who clearly had money walking through Harlem like she owned it. And something in Michael's alcohol-loosened brain made a decision. He pushed off the Cadillac, walked across the street, directly into Mamie's path. Mamie stopped, looked at him. "Excuse me?" she said quietly. Her voice was polite but firm. Michael smiled. "You live around here?" "I'm asking you to move." "I'm asking you a question." Michael's smile widened. "You live in this neighborhood? You work for my father?" Mamie's expression didn't change. "I don't know who your father is, and I don't care. Move." Behind Michael, his 2 friends were watching nervously. One of them called out, "Mike, come on, man, let's go." But Michael wasn't listening. He was staring at Mamie with the kind of contempt that came from a lifetime of being taught that some people mattered and others didn't. "You got a smart mouth," Michael said. "You know what happens to—" He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, Michael Costello gathered saliva in his mouth and spit. The glob of spit hit Mamie's dress just above the waist, a dark stain spreading across the cream fabric. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Mamie looked down at her dress, then back up at Michael. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no fear, no reaction at all. Michael was still smiling. "That's what I think of." "What's your name?" Mamie's voice was quiet. "What?" "Your name. What is it?" Michael laughed. "Michael Costello. You know who that is? You know who my father is?" "No, but I know who my husband is." She turned and walked to her car, got in, drove away. Michael and his friends stood there for a moment. Then one of them said, "Mike, you know whose wife that was?" "I don't give a shit whose wife. That was Mamie Johnson, Bumpy Johnson's wife." Michael's faded. "You just spit on Bumpy Johnson's wife in the middle of Harlem." Michael tried to laugh it off. "So what? My father runs East Harlem. Bumpy's got no—" But his friend was already walking back to the car. "Your father's going to kill you, Mike." Mamie Johnson drove directly to Bumpy's office above the Lenox Lounge. She didn't cry, didn't call ahead, just walked in, closed the door behind her, and stood there. Bumpy was sitting at his desk reviewing ledgers with Illinois Gordon, his most trusted lieutenant. When he looked up and saw Mamie's face, he set down his pen. "Out," Bumpy said to Illinois. Illinois left immediately. Bumpy stood, walked around the desk. What happened? Mamie unbuttoned her coat, showed him the stain on her dress. Bumpy looked at it for a long moment. "Who?"
A young white man, early 20s, said his name was Michael Costello. Bumpy's expression didn't change, but Illinois, who was standing just outside the door, heard Bumpy's next words clearly. "Vincent Costello's son? He said his father runs East Harlem." Bumpy was silent. "He spit on me in front of maybe 30 people on Lenox Avenue," Mamie said. Her voice was steady. "In broad daylight, on a Sunday afternoon." Bumpy looked at his wife. "You hurt?" "No." "Scared?" "No." Bumpy nodded slowly. Then he walked to the door, opened it. "Illinois?" Illinois stepped back inside. "Find Vincent Costello," Bumpy said. "Tell him I need to see him tonight. 8 o'clock, Lenox Lounge, upstairs office." "What's this about?" "Your son." Costello's jaw tightened. "Michael? What about him?" "Bumpy will explain." "Is he hurt? Is he—" "He's fine, for now." The implication was clear. Vincent stood. "Tell Bumpy I'll be there." Illinois left. One of Vincent's men leaned forward. "Boss, you want us to come with you?" "No." Vincent's voice was hard. "This is family business." After the card game broke up, Vincent went looking for his son. He found Michael at Carlos Bar on 118th Street, drinking with the same 2 friends from earlier that afternoon. Vincent walked in, grabbed him by the collar, dragged him outside into the alley behind the bar. "What the hell did you do today?" Michael tried to pull away. "What are you talking about?" Vincent slammed him against the brick wall. "Bumpy Johnson wants to see me tonight, about you. So I'm asking you one more time, what did you do?" Michael's face went pale. There was this woman, outside the Lenox Lounge. She had a smart mouth, so I—" "You what?" "I spit on her." Vincent's hand tightened around Michael's collar. "You spit on her?" "Yeah, but—" "Was it Bumpy's wife?" Michael didn't answer. Vincent let go of his son, stepped back, ran his hair through his hair. "Jesus Christ, Michael." "Dad, it's not—" "Shut up." Vincent's voice was shaking. Do you have any idea what you just did? She's just some—" Vincent hit him, open palm across the face, hard enough to snap Michael's head sideways. "She's Bumpy Johnson's wife, and you spit on her in front of witnesses in the middle of Harlem." Michael was holding his face. "So what? You're Vincent Costello. You run East Harlem. Bumpy can't—" "Bumpy Johnson can do whatever he wants," Vincent said quietly. "And if he wants you dead for disrespecting his wife, there's not a goddamn thing I can do to stop him. You're my father. You're not going to let—" "I'm your father, which means if I don't handle this right, we both die tonight." He grabbed Michael's arm. "You're coming with me." "Where?" "To apologize." 8 o'clock. The Lenox Lounge's upstairs office was arranged carefully. One long table, 40 chairs around it. At the head of the table sat Bumpy Johnson, alone. The 40 chairs were empty. Vincent Costello arrived at 7:58 p.m. with Michael beside him. Illinois Gordon met them at the door. "Mr. Costello, Bumpy's waiting upstairs." They climbed the stairs in silence. When Vincent opened the office door, he saw the table, the 40 empty chairs, and Bumpy sitting at the far end. "Come in," Bumpy said quietly. Vincent walked in. Michael followed, trying to look confident but failing. "Sit," Bumpy said. Vincent sat in the chair closest to Bumpy. Michael sat next to his father. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Bumpy looked at Michael. "What's your name?" "Michael Costello." "How old are you, Michael?" 19. Bumpy nodded, looked at Vincent. "Your son?" "Yes." "Your only son?" Vincent hesitated. "Yes." Bumpy leaned back in his chair. "This afternoon, your son spit on my wife, in front of 30 witnesses on Lenox Avenue." Vincent's hands were flat on the table. "I know, and I'm not finished." Bumpy's voice was quiet. "Your son spit on my wife because he thought he could, because he thinks Harlem belongs to you, because he thinks black women don't deserve respect." Michael opened his mouth to speak. "Don't," Bumpy said. Not loud, just final. Michael closed his mouth. Bumpy looked back at Vincent. "Now, I could handle this myself. I could take your son outside and teach him what happens when you disrespect my wife. But that would start a war between you and me, and wars are expensive." Vincent was listening carefully. "So I'm giving you a choice. You handle it, right here, right now, in front of witnesses, or I handle it my way." "What do you mean, handle this?" Vincent asked. Bumpy's answer was simple. "Punish him." The room was silent. "You want me to—" "I want you to show me that your son's disrespect doesn't represent you. I want you to show me that you understand what he did, and I want you to deliver the punishment yourself." Vincent looked at his son, then back at Bumpy. "What kind of punishment?" Bumpy stood, walked to the door, opened it. 40 men filed in. Vincent's crew, his soldiers, his enforcers, every man who worked for Vincent Costello in East Harlem. They filled the 40 chairs around the table, silent, confused, waiting. When the last man sat down, Bumpy closed the door. He walked back to the head of the table. "These men work for you," Bumpy said to Vincent. "They respect you. They follow your orders. So right now, in front of all of them, you're going to show them what happens when someone in your family disrespects mine." Vincent understood. Bumpy was making this a public lesson, not just for Michael, for everyone. "Stand up," Vincent said to his son. Michael didn't move. "Stand up." Michael stood slowly. Vincent stood as well, walked around the table until he was face to face with his son. 40 men watched in complete silence. "You spit on Bumpy Johnson's wife," Vincent said. "Dad, Vincent hit him. Closed fist, across the jaw. Michael stumbled backward, blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. "You disrespected a woman in public,"
Vincent said. His voice was shaking. "You disrespected Harlem. You disrespected me." He hit him again. This time Michael went down, falling into one of the chairs. "Get up," Vincent said. Michael tried to stand. His legs were shaking. Vincent grabbed him by the collar, pulled him upright. "You thought you were tough," Vincent said. "Thought you could do whatever you wanted because you're my son." He hit him again, harder. Michael's nose broke. Blood poured down his face. Around the table, 40 men sat frozen. Some looked away. Others watched with expressions that showed they understood exactly what was happening. This wasn't about Michael anymore. This was about Vincent proving to Bumpy Johnson that he controlled his own family, that he could discipline his own blood, that he understood the rules. Vincent hit Michael twice more. By the fifth blow, Michael collapsed completely. Vincent caught him before he hit the floor, lowered him into a chair. Michael was conscious, but barely. His face was destroyed, blood everywhere. Vincent turned to Bumpy. "Is that enough?" Vincent's voice was hoarse. Bumpy looked at Michael for a long moment, then at Vincent. "Almost." Vincent waited.
Make him apologize out loud to my wife in front of everyone here. Vincent looked down at his son. Michael? Michael didn't respond. Vincent grabbed his hair, forced his head up. Say it.
Michael's voice came out as a whisper, blood bubbling through broken teeth. "I'm sorry." "Louder," Bumpy said from across the room. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson. I'm sorry I disrespected you." Bumpy walked slowly around the table until he was standing directly in front of the broken, bleeding mess that was Vincent Costello's son.
"If you ever come to Harlem again," Bumpy said quietly, "if I ever hear your name in this neighborhood, if I ever even think about my wife, I won't call your father. I'll handle it myself. Do you understand?" Michael nodded. Bumpy straightened, looked at Vincent. "We're done here." Vincent helped his son stand. Michael could barely walk. 2 of Vincent's men stood to help, but Vincent waved them off. "I've got him." Vincent half-carried, half-dragged Michael toward the door. At the threshold, he stopped, turned back to Bumpy. "We're square?" Bumpy nodded once. "We're square." Vincent left with his son. The 40 men remained seated, waiting. Bumpy walked back to the head of the table. "Let me be very clear," he said. His voice carried to every corner of the room. "What happened here tonight was between Vincent Costello and his son. It has nothing to do with business, nothing to do with territory. Vincent handled his family business the way it needed to be handled." He paused. "But if anyone else, from any crew, any family, any organization thinks they can disrespect Harlem, disrespect my wife, disrespect this community, you saw what happens. Even a father will turn on his own son to make things right." Bumpy looked around the room. "You can go." The 40 men filed out in silence. Within an hour, the story had spread through every social club, every bar, every street corner in East Harlem. Bumpy Johnson beat his own son unconscious in front of his entire crew because Bumpy Johnson demanded it. 3 days later, Michael Costello left New York. Vincent sent him to Miami with $5,000 and instructions never to return. "You're lucky to be alive," Vincent told him at the bus station. "If Bumpy had handled this himself, I'd be burying you instead of sending you away." Michael never came back to New York. Vincent and Bumpy continued doing business for the next 11 years. The relationship was professional, respectful, based on mutual understanding. And every time they met, both men remembered the night Vincent Costello proved he understood the rules. Years later, in 1965, a reporter asked Vincent Costello about rumors of a violent incident involving his son and Bumpy Johnson. Vincent's answer was simple. "My son made a mistake. I corrected it. That's family business." The reporter pressed. "But sources say you—" "Family business," Vincent repeated. Nothing more to say. But in Harlem, the story became legend. Not because of the violence, not because of the drama, because Bumpy Johnson had done something no one else could do. He'd made one of the most powerful mobsters in New York turn on his own blood. He'd made a father punish his son. And he'd done it without raising his voice, without drawing a weapon, without making a single threat. He simply made it clear, this is the only way forward.